In the world of AI, cybersecurity is something that I think is something every single individual, much less every entrepreneur and business owner, needs to be considering. Whether you're an individual wanting to be able to make sure that you have your life as secure as possible, or whether you are an entrepreneur who wants to make sure you, your business, and your team are secured, this is something I think is not discussed enough about around cybersecurity. Today, we have an excellent guest, Edward, who's going to talk quite a bit about what he and his company does around cybersecurity. And I'd love to pick his brain on how he believes AI will impact the future of what cybersecurity is. Edward, how you doing today?
Good. How you doing, Matt? It's great. Glad to be on the show.
Yeah, thank you for coming on. So, to the point of what I just mentioned, I don't know if what you guys currently do speaks to what I anticipate will be a major concern for a lot of general individuals. Do you speak to or address for the complexity of how AI will kind of be a part of our life in the future?
Yes and no, right? What's happening with AI is we've given people, I tell people this all the time, we've given them a car. We haven't shown them where the seatbelts are, how to start the engine. We don't tell them how the gears work, where the airbags work, how to use the turn
Right,
signals. We said, get in the car and drive. And people
right.
right
Let's go.
now are plowing down the streets and trying to go as fast as they can. And then when they do that, there's a cybersecurity aspect that is being overlooked, right? In order to fully implement AI, what people don't understand is that the company has to be through a maturity scale. Right now, we're currently developing that maturity scale to explain to customers that before you can implement AI, which is right here towards the end of the cycle, there's a lot of things that you have to do on the front end, right? Your IT department, data governance, data classification, identifying what PII is, identifying what IP is. A lot of companies aren't doing that. They just say, "Hey, we got ChatGPT, or we have some other AI tool that we can do, and let's just put it out there and let's see how fast we can go." And then later on, they start to realize that, hey, we got an issue. We haven't even identified policies on how people should be using AI. We haven't set the guardrails. We haven't clearly put that scope in place, and that's where we come in. We come in at a higher level, right? Uh, what we do, a CertiFen does, it operates as an independent cybersecurity and third-party risk advisory firm, right? We focus on validating vendor security posture rather than just collecting paperwork. So instead of solely on self-attestation questionnaires that a lot of these companies do, Prevent brings structure, right? So we'll take a look at the company and say, okay, you have all these cybersecurity tools, prove it to us, right? And then what's falling into that place is their role in deployment of AI. How are you rolling out AI? What policies do you have around AI? Your vendor says that he has these controls. How do you know? Oh, because they said so on a paper. That's not really
Right,
secure, right?
right.
We believe we trust, but we verify everything that goes along.
What do you think is the most commonly missed thing when you consult with the company or you're considering to work with them and you're doing a needs analysis? Where's the thing that most companies are going wrong with right now?
They don't understand where their company is on a maturity perspective, right? And there's a lot of things when we talk about maturity perspective. They could be making millions of dollars. I've seen this happen
Mhm.
before. Companies are making millions of dollars in revenue, but they haven't defined a clear IT maturity roadmap for them. Okay. And like I stated before, this is what we're doing. We're developing this roadmap so that we can talk to customers and say, okay, do you have A, B, C, and D in place? Right. I understand that you want to get in the car and drive, but do you have tires on? Is there an engine in your car? Are you just sitting inside a shell? They don't understand a lot of the basic things that they need to do. Right. In order for you to do AI, what information are you going to allow your employees to deploy out there? What questions are you going to be asking of your employees as far as if they're going to be giving proprietary information to AI to be able to disseminate and look at it? Remember, if you're going to, especially a lot of these folks are using the free version, which becomes public knowledge, right, rather than the isolated versions. How safe is that IP that you just deployed? And are you putting PII data People don't realize there's a lot of consequences to deploying AI, and they don't even know what their employees are doing. They have no guardrails. They have no controls. They're not ready.
So they're not ready to implement what they're implementing, or they're not ready to ultimately work with you at that point. Like, is what? Where's the?
So we help them along that maturity scale,
Yeah,
right? We don't look at. Think of us as an umbrella overarching on their company, right? From a cybersecurity perspective. Now, there's tons of cybersecurity people out there that are doing each different component. What these companies are lacking is a simple concept of themselves and their company and how mature their company is from not just a cybersecurity perspective, but also from an IT perspective, from a policy perspective. You have different people putting different pressures. You have insurance, you have compliance, you have regulations, you have all these different things. Did you really deploy a framework that you're marching to? What are your guardrails and what's actually driving your guidance? What are you following? If they can answer these basic, simple questions, they want to release AI, they're opening themselves up to a can of worms that's going to be very difficult to unravel later on, or too late to unravel.
yeah. Um, is there a type of company that you specialize in working with? Like, is it an industry, like an area, or is it kind of more of a global offering?
It's a global offering, but we're getting a lot of traction on, getting a lot of attention on are folks that from a large enterprise perspective that are dealing with a lot of third-party vendors, right? Because one of the questions that is starting to come up more and more, especially on insurance forms, is how are you dealing with your third-party vendors? And a lot of these companies, they provide a questionnaire, they give a questionnaire to the third-party vendors, and they get to look every single time the third-party vendor gets this questionnaire, and they look at them like they're deer caught in the headlight. They don't know how to answer these questionnaires. So they take it to some other, say, listen, we got to talk to somebody about filling out these questionnaires for us. So they start to check off these questionnaires and they think that they have all these, the guardrails or the policies in place and procedures in place. And they hand back this questionnaire. The company did their due diligence. The enterprise did their due diligence by saying, okay, we provided the questionnaire. They answered it. We're covered. Are you really? The small vendor or the mid-sized vendor answer the questionnaire, say, hey, listen, we answered the questionnaire. So where's the gap? The gap is they're trusting them and they've answered it, but everybody, all they did was check the box that this process was done. But there's no validation occurring between the two. There's no third party saying, hey, yes, you did that procedure and we validated it and we gave you a score on it. And so we're getting all different types of industries right now that are starting to know what we offer because no one's offering what we're doing right now.
Okay.
We're completely new. We're completely new to the industry. I saw this wave coming a long time ago, way back when I don't want to say the name of it, a large company got hacked, but the technology and the capabilities weren't developed yet in IT. And then as the tools became available, about a year and a half ago, 2 years ago, I started to develop the IP, this patent pending process to be able to do this. And more companies are now realizing that, hey, we need to talk to you because we can't do it ourselves. So their cybersecurity team is handing the questionnaire. They're getting questions from their CFO. They're getting questions from their HR department. They're getting questions from the application team, from the insurance department, from the compliance department. And the IT is gathering all this, putting it on the questionnaire and handing it over to the vendor. The vendor takes a look at this and says, okay, let's try to handle it the best we can.
Yeah.
Okay. Now they answer it, but sometimes they may not even know what they're answering. If we turn around and say to them, what's your IRP? They're looking up an incident response plan. Oh, what to do when an incident occurs. Yeah, what do? We shut off the machines and we call for help. That's
Right.
not
Yeah.
an incident response plan, right? Or what's your disaster recovery plan? We don't have a disaster, so we don't have to worry about that. Do you have a business continuity plan? Yeah, we do. We have backups. Backups does not create the plan. So it's looking at this holistically from both a strategic and a tactical perspective that allows both the the large enterprise and the small to medium businesses to be able to better do business in a secure way and to they may not know what they need to do,
Yeah.
right? They may not know what they need to do. As a matter of fact, we pull some statistics out on this about cybersecurity claims and insurance policies that the first on the first catch, 44% of insurance policies are denied on cyber insurance claim, right? And these are all statistics that, we can provide you the URLs and the companies that have actually done this research. Then you have the next wave of insurance claims that up to 67% get declined because a procedure or something that they needed to do according to the insurance policy wasn't met. Backups, patching, anything. And then you have this last one third. And according to the research that's gone out there, the average claim was about $2 million, and the average payout was 300,000.
Mm.
So how do you get your insurance tendered? And the way you get the insurance tendered is you have an advocate on your side, like us, right? So the first thing we do is we understand what your insurance policy claims is, what's required from you. And through, this proprietary IP, this patent pending process that we created, we developed 5 domains that need to be covered. And as long as we hit all 5 of those domains, as you move forward, we meet with your insurance company and say, hey, are they covered? Right? It's all about risk transference, right? We're going to transfer the risk back to the insurance company to say, hey, this is what we're doing. Does it meet your criteria? And they have to say yes or no. Yes, we're green lighted. If they say no, what are we doing wrong? Else do we need to do? That part isn't being done by people. A lot of people get insurance policies. I paid my insurance. I'm covered. I'm good. They go to sleep at night thinking that they're fine. Something happens and they're not covered. A good home insurance, right? Home insurance is the same way. If someone has a home insurance policy and they don't realize that part of their insurance policy may say to them, I'm just making this up, right? Don't hold
Sure,
me
sure.
to it. But it says that you have to replace your roof every 10 years, and you don't know that you have to replace your roof in 10 years. Major hurricane comes by or a flood comes by, your roof is gone, flooding goes through your house, and they ask you, how was your roof? And you say 15 years. Oh, you're not covered. Why am I
Yeah.
not covered? Because you didn't follow the procedure that we asked you to do.
So most companies that would bring you on, do they bring you on kind of like in a two-step process, or is it kind of like an all-encompassing? And what I mean by that is I can imagine there's probably like an initial, here's all the boxes we've got to check to get you covered fully with your 5-step process.
Mhm.
And then is there a retainer model where like you maintain working with them, or is it mostly like a let's get you certified and then let us know if you need our help down the road?
Nope. The first thing we do is we don't go there to sell anything, right? The biggest mistake that people go is that when a potential client contacts them, the first thing they want to do is they see dollar signs, right? We don't see dollar. We don't go in there as salespeople. We go in there as trusted advisors. Our goal is to advise on your behalf, right? And I'll give an example. If there is a security breach and your insurance policy um, is triggered, right, there are certain things that you need to do. First of all, you need to call your insurance company. The insurance company is going to call attorneys. Then you're going to call forensic people. There's a list of people that your insurance policy will allow you to contact, right? What you don't contact for some reason is you don't contact anybody that can serve as your advisor to help you get from point A, the breach, to point Z, you're back up in operation and understand everything that's going on. So the attorneys are negotiating the rate. What are they going to be willing to pay the ransomware? The forensic company is going to be doing their so-called forensic to provide you some sort of attestation as to the RCA, the root cause analysis of how these perpetrators got in. If you have no experience in this, how do you know that the report you're getting is actually good? I actually saw one time somebody get a forensic report that was one page. Excuse me. The report was one page. I said, this is garbage. How did they get in? How do you know they're not in? It was But this is where experience comes in. But if you're a small to medium sized business that doesn't understand how to navigate these waters, you're totally lost. So what you need to do is you need to contact us, right? And say, look, where can you help us? Right. And our goal is not to try to sell you anything. Our goal is to try to be a trusted advisor, that someone that you're going to have faith in, that if something occurs, you can call us to come in, right? When it comes to doing the vendor management portion of it, what we're seeing is a lot of companies want us to take over that function of their vendor onboarding, right? Excuse me, because we could do it a lot quicker, a lot more efficient. We have the experience. Do you have a CISO? Do you have somebody that has CISO experience? Do you have someone that has insurance experience, policy creation experience, looking at contracts to understand all that? Your compliance framework. Do you have somebody that's coming in with all this experience to represent you? If you don't, what are you really asking? The biggest mistake that I see happening, right, that we see occurring in the industry is that there's a new role that's been created, right? I identified a role called vendor management. When I identified this role, I did a search and nobody was doing vendor management. Back in the beginning of October, I did a LinkedIn search for the jobs posted. The total number of jobs were about 5 to 7 job companies that actually posted for a vendor management position. By the middle of November, over 1,300 postings were for vendor management. Over 1,300 companies had posted for the position of vendor management. Now, what I found interesting in looking at some of these things were that the people that were requesting this was the financial department, the CFO. The vendor management was going to be reporting to the CFO. And what's happening with companies is they don't understand where this role sits and what's required of the role. So they're grasping, they're paddling in the water, trying to grab a lifesaver to say, hey, we got somebody who's handling this. But unfortunately, they don't have the experience to understand which components sit in which department, right? An application portion of it should not be going to the CFO to understand if it's application security. Cybersecurity is specific. Vendor management is specific to that. Okay.
Mm.
As cybersecurity in whole starts to mature, I want you to think of it like the field of medicine, right? I don't know how many people know this, but a long time ago, the person who took care of your medicinal needs was the barber. That's why in the barbershop, the red and white candy striped thing that spins outside the
Right.
barbershop.
Yeah.
That's so people know that barber also provided medical services. But as that profession developed and began to mature, you need to have a medical license, right? And it slowly started to develop, and more specified areas of treatment occurred, right? Eye doctors, ENTs, ear, nose, and throat. You have neurologists, you have finger doctors, foot doctors, you have intestinal doctors, you have kidney doctors, you have doctors that have specialized in every single thing because it's a fully matured field. And as more and more technology advances, more specializations will occur, right? In cybersecurity, everybody is saying that they're doing cybersecurity, but it's not really the proper maturity level as of yet. So
Okay.
what's going to happen is it's going to push more and more specified areas of concentration. Like I said, what we're doing, no one else is doing. Our specialized area is we're connecting the gaps between the two. We're certifying and we're validating. We're the connectors. So when people say to you, how are you validating your third-party vendor? You could turn around and say to them, we got CertiFen involved because our stuff is built on reputation. We built this proprietary IP and this scaling model that no one else has. We give you a score that no one else has. So it's going to develop to the point where more and more jobs and more classifications and specialties are going to evolve. Now, let's talk about how AI is going to help. Interesting. AI is going to allow the first single person billionaire to exist. A company with one person that is going to be a billionaire. That
That's
was
not out
never
there already?
no, I don't know of any single person company, a company with just one employee that is a billionaire.
Yeah, I mean, it seems like I don't know the answer to that, but it seems like there should be.
There should be. I can tell you right now, there are millionaires. I've seen some of these single person millionaire companies, right? And it's going to be a matter of time before that grows. But it's going to have such automation behind it that even with that one person billionaire company, they're going to be forced to have other departments, right? Because you can't do all the other divisions that you need. You can't do finance, you can't do payroll, you can't do taxes. So it may be a one person billionaire company that is basically operating all the strings and telling other people what to do. But you're still going to need those specialty fields. You can't get rid of those people. Who's going to do the taxes? You as a billion? No, you're not going to do the taxes. It's not going to happen. Um, so I say to people this all the time, right? Somebody had asked me, "What is the greatest thing that occurred?" I said, "Well, the greatest adaptation of technology wasn't by a recent technological advance. It wasn't by something that someone discovered. The greatest adoption of technology occurred because a tiny virus, think about this, a tiny virus shut down the world and said, adapt or disappear. And companies were forced to adapt. And if they didn't, you know, they're no longer around. A lot of companies struggled with COVID. The companies that could not adapt to the technology that needed to occur are by the wayside. A lot of them.
So, as I hear you explain kind of what you guys do and where you draw distinctions in specialty, to your point, you mentioned there are a ton of companies out there that do cybersecurity, right? I have no shortage of people who run cybersecurity companies, but yours has a patent pending distinction that separates yourself over a lot of other companies or every other company in that regards. Now, I could imagine the most important thing for you to do is to be able to communicate that differentiator to your prospective clients,
Right.
and the value proposition to them. So for me as a guy who runs and builds and scales sales teams, I always try to apply that to how can I get that message in front of as many people as possible. And you mentioned earlier, we're not attempting to take a sales approach. We're looking to do more of a consulting approach. So does that mean that you guys are anticipating and expecting the majority of your customer to come to you, or is there a bit of an outreach mechanism that you're going to have to utilize to get the word of mouth out? And if so, what do you anticipate your outreach mechanism to be?
That's a fantastic question. Right now we're doing a lot of direct introductions. People that know people and say, listen, you
Sure.
need to talk to this person.
Right.
Um, we're reaching out to different organizations to become members of different organizations. We've actually been approached to join advisory boards.
Hmm.
To when they listen to what we do and how we do it, one organization actually said to us, if we have 50 people in here, all 50 people will be engaged in actually a ton of questions because no one knows what you're talking about till you talk about it, and then they realize how important it is that they have this, right? That's one of the things why I loved about Steve Jobs, right? Steve Jobs showed us what we need that we didn't know we needed, right? He gave us the iPad, he gave us the iPhone. Nobody realized we needed that. Now you can't live without it.
How many people do you have on your team, Edward? Like your current company consists of who? Like how many people total?
Right now, there's five of us.
And
We
all
got a
five of them, are they people like you, as in experts at cybersecurity? Are there some junior employees as well?
two are experts in cybersecurity, Fortune 100 companies, Fortune 500 companies. We have a programmer, another the program specialize in different areas, right? One is in cybersecurity and automation, and the other one is in API integration and automation. And then we brought on a crackerjack sales and marketing person who is really phenomenal at reaching out to companies, talking to them, understanding what their needs are. And it's funny because the first thing he says to them is, "Look, we just want to talk. We're not going to sell you anything, right?"
Sure.
Um, because that's our approach. People are very hesitant. If somebody called me up and said, "Listen, I want to sell you a product. The first thing I'm saying, listen, I'm too busy. I don't have time to buy anything. But if someone says, hey, look, we'd like to offer you an hour, 2 hour free consultation just to understand what you're looking to do, if it's important and if we can help you. If we can't, maybe we can refer you to someone who might be able to help you in that area, right? Um, I'm a big proponent of paying it forward, meaning that
You're a big proponent of what?
paying it forward, paying it forward.
Okay, yeah, yeah.
I I
I agree.
I I agree 100% paying it forward. Right? And there's so much business out there, Matt. There's so much business out there. You don't have to be cutthroat. You don't have to be mean about it. If you can get the sale, don't try to hold on to it, hold it close to your chest. Say, I'll get it back to my year, right? Look at how you can help somebody down the road, right? Matter of fact, we're looking, we're in the midst of partnering up with a company saying, look, people are not ready for your product. We see the value in your product, and I think everybody should have your product. But the problem is you're not getting sales is because, again, that maturity of the awareness of that company of what they're when they're ready to actually adopt you is not there. You know, why am I going to put seat covers on my car when I don't even have a car? Right. So that's the analogy that I try to use. And look, they have to be ready for your product. If they're not ready for your product, then let's talk about other people that can help them get ready for your product. And then having that consortium of different companies that are in your pool of Rolodexes that you meet with and say, look, what can I help you with? You know, what is it that you need? What's not occurring? Because everybody wants the sale, but everybody's missing out and leaving money on the table. And the way that they're leaving money on the table is that they're all trying to do it for themselves. Right? You don't, if you only do it for yourselves, people know that you're doing it for yourself and they don't come and help you. But
Sure.
you do something for someone a year down the road, 2 years down the road, they may remember something that you did for them. And they're going to say, hey, look, talk to this person. They have a great vision, a great concept. They might be able to help you out. Nothing may ever come of it. Fine. Who cares? But you did a good deed, right?
Yeah, so I asked that question of the size of your team, in that I could imagine just, and once again, I always think of these things from a revenue,
Right.
sales, growing the team size. So, and I completely get there's probably a lot more value in just you having a bunch of content as the authority and allowing a lot of people to ultimately come to you. My concern is with any company who depends on that, there's inevitably in most cases a time where that well runs dry and there has to be some sort of an outreach mechanism to continue to scale.
Right.
So having a process in there, you mentioned you had brought in a marketing and sales guy. You said a crackerjack marketing. I don't know what the crackerjack term means there. What is crackerjack sales and marketing? What does that mean?
Someone who's been in sales for so many years that realizes that you don't have to sell, right? I
Got it.
tell I tell people, don't try to sell your product. When you talk to the customers, you talk to them about what their problems are. The solution will present itself. When
Of
you
course.
have an organic conversation, the solution is going to present itself and they're going to turn around and say, hey, this is what I need. You'd say to them either, I can help you. I can help you with that. I can help you find that, or I will get back to you on someone I know that will reach to you and say, hey, listen, I know you need assistance in trying to find this. Right. So nobody wants a seller. I'm not going to sell you
Yeah.
back.
Well, everybody wants to buy. Nobody wants to feel like they were sold.
Right. They want to feel like the decision was theirs.
Correct.
Right. So when we approach customers, we literally we're willing to do a 2 hour consultation for them to understand their environment. It's like you went to the doctor and the doctor says, I'm going to prescribe you medication XYZ. And you're like, wait a minute, doc, I didn't even really talk to you. Why are you trying to tell me this medication? Right. But when you go to a doctor and you have a really good doctor, he starts talking about, you have a normal conversation. How's your work life? How's your family life? What's going on here? What'd you do here? You go on vacation? They have a natural conversation. And all the time, the doctor's putting these pieces together to understand you, what you do, how you live, what your interactions are, to paint that full picture. At the end of the day, he may say, look, you don't need medication. You need to just put the phone down, shut your computer off, and relax. You need to just take a break. You need to eat regularly. If you do have something that you need a medication, yeah, that's it. Like if if we meet with a company and they have a fully developed cybersecurity practice in place and everything else, I'll turn around and tell them, look, you don't need us.
Right.
Your maturity level on your cybersecurity is so mature that you've already doing this in-house, right? And I met companies like that, right? Where they're doing it themselves. They're doing their own assessment, okay? But it's an in-house effort and it's very large for them. The question is, at the end of the day, do they want to give more effort, more time to their IT team or the cybersecurity team and say, look, why don't we just work with CertiFen, let them do this portion so you guys could breathe? Or do we feel that we're comfortable enough that the gears are in flow? You know, that's their call. But at the end of the day, I will tell them, look, you guys are crackerjack. Okay. Where we're going to come in is you're going to say that, hey, we have now an independent third party vendor who is helping us attest to what we're seeing with our vendors, right? And if our vendors can meet that need, they will work with our third party vendors to get them up to snuff, right? They're going to help them mature in such a way that they can do business with us. Because the last thing, hackers are getting smart. Hackers are not going directly at businesses anymore. They're not going to attack you directly. They're going to attack you through your supply chain, right? They're going to attack you through your supply chain, find out what vendor's doing business with you, sit and wait, and then get into your system. Now, from a sales perspective, you asked me about the different streams. Um, I love direct marketing, right? I don't do email too much. I'll tell you why I don't do email too much, because you can be marked as spam, then you get your domain marked as spam, and then that's really not where you want to be, right? Um, my most productive have been joining organizations where other companies are also trying to get off the ground, or you have well-established companies there, and partnering up with them, offering your service to them, offering to sit in on meetings just to be, a fly in the wall to understand how
Sure.
they're doing things,
Yeah.
learning from them. Don't be afraid to invite them in to your meetings. When you partner up with some of these companies, let them know, hey, listen, I want to meet with potential clients, and I want to bring you in. I want to bring you in as a, the 800-pound gorilla in the room, that, hey, you got the muscle that can help us make sure that we help them get over the hurdle. Um, I like LinkedIn has its place, right? LinkedIn has its place for people to find you to do some generic type of research. But I'll tell you what I get most of the time on LinkedIn. 99.99% of the time, I get somebody directly contacted me to sell something.
Of
And
course.
I think
Yeah.
it's really funny when I see someone telling me that they want to offer me a cybersecurity.
Yeah.
Something
There's like
inside.
zero vision of research. Yeah. I mean, it's just
Yeah, there's
it,
something in cybersecurity. I'm like, guys. And then when they offer me something that's completely not even in my field, I think, like, did you really look at my profile to understand
yeah.
what I'm doing?
No, they don't. That's the problem. It's mass marketing. It's not targeted at all. It's
It's
yeah.
not marketed. It's not targeted. It's it's. I think that when they say, you can use LinkedIn and you can go to 5 times more exposure. Exposure to who? I don't want to talk to 1,000 people that aren't even.
Yeah, you need to speak to the right audience,
Yeah, I
correct.
want to speak to right. I'd rather talk to 3 or 4 people that are specific to what I need to do, rather than 1,000 people that are going to waste my time. Because if you need to know within 5 or 10 minutes of you talking to someone, to walk away, okay? And I think that that's how everybody should learn to sell property. So everybody should get the real estate license, right? Because real estate agents, I know people in my family were real estate agents. When they first started out, every time somebody walked in, they try selling them a house. They try to sell them a house. And then they find out after with time, they're wasting their time taking people to 10, 20, 30 showings, and they don't even qualify. They don't even have the credit to buy a house that they're looking at. They're approved for $100,000, and they want to see a $500,000 house and want to make an offer of 100,000. And then they start to learn, hey, wait, I'm wasting my time. My time is too valuable to be driving people around. I'm not people's chauffeur. Let them go around. Go to realtor.com, go to the MLS, pull up the listing, you drive around the house. Find out what you do your due diligence before you come into the office to talk to the real estate agent. The same thing with salespeople. And someone calls them up, they should know within 5 minutes. Within 5 minutes, they should know whether that person is a viable customer or not. Okay. Eh,
Well, it depends. Let me give you an argument to that. If you're a good salesperson, and you said if you're a
Right.
salesperson, you should know. If you're a good salesperson, you should. Like for me, there's so many times I'll consult with a company, Edward, and I'll be like, okay, perfect. First, I ask them who's your ICP. 75% of the time, they can't answer that very, very, very clearly, right? Number two thing I'll say is, in less than 15 words, tell me what makes you uniquely valuable compared to your competition. And it's almost an impossible thing for them to do it in under 15 minutes. They don't know how to make their words valuable, right?
Right.
And then number three, I say, I want you to send me your best example of your best presentation you've ever recorded, selling a customer. Ultimately, I love that to be a customer that ultimately bought from you. Send me your best example. And assuming they have an example, then I have them send it to me. And what you find is 80% of salespeople, professional sellers, find themselves talking about themselves and their product inside of the first 15 minutes. That's the biggest mistake they make. If you have 1 hour blocked to get to know your customer, you should be spending 15 to 20 minutes getting to know your customer, asking them questions, having them talk about their problems, guiding them down certain paths, but you shouldn't be providing solutions. So often, I'm not joking, Edward, within 3 minutes, a company is explaining, let me explain to you what we do. And just great, just spray and pray, throw up against the wall. Here's what we do, see how it fits. And that's why, like, for me, Edward, like if you were to come to me, right, you have companies come to you and say, how can I help with cybersecurity? If you were to come to me and say, Matt, I've got an incredibly distinct product. I have an incredibly unique value of experience with my organization. What would you prescribe for me as the best way for me to have short-term and long-term growth? And I would tell you, I would work with you to create a webinar series to share your knowledge in a lunch and learned environment where you could invite people, you could do outreach to people, inviting them to educate them for free without expecting anything, helping them understand where that is, using that as a webhook master class for you to be able to find people who show up to that. Then you can market to them after, you can connect with them after, be willing to offer a free audit to them at the completion of the Lunch and Learn webinar series. You then create not just a webinar series where you're able to share your knowledge and your experience and your unique value prop that you offer. You can also get a low pressure outreach to people that are in your ICP that ultimately you would like to be able to get in front of. But then you also create a second wave of relevant content that you can then put that creates better authority and better trust on your social media. Instead of static posts, now you have video posts of you speaking as the authority on this level of cybersecurity, where you will then organically having people come to more of your webinar series, more of your lunches, connecting with more companies. You'll then be asked to speak as a speaker at more events, shows, and experts in that regards. And that will create that more organic, natural growth that I think you'd be.
100%. You hit the nail on the head, Matt, right? Because one of the things that we're doing, like I said, is we are joining organizations and offering to speak, right? Because a lot of people say, listen, hey, we would like for you to attend our thing. I said, do you want me to attend as a speaker? Because sometimes they need to fill in some slots because they don't have anything. Or, they want you to attend as an expert, whatever the reason is, right? And I always offer them, look, if you want me to speak, great. Because they'll take a look at my profile, they'll take a look at my company website, they'll see what we're doing, and they'll be like, we don't know exactly who's using this. And I'll tell them 99% of people aren't using this they're trying to use some form of it, right? But they're not doing it. So when you're 100% right, getting in front of people and just offering to just talk, and we're literally joining more and more organizations that we are just presenting. We just got invited to this past week. 3 organizations reached out to us to speak at their conferences, right? To speak at their conferences. They want us to speak and get the word out there. We're like, sure, absolutely, we'll do it. You know, um, and when you're first starting out, it's you don't ask them to pay you. Just want you to cover the expenses. You listen. You want me to go to XYZ state? I'll go. You cover my expenses. You cover my meals. You don't have to pay me as a speaker because you're giving me exposure. That's enough for me, right? But now when the company's really large and you want somebody like some of these major companies to speak, you're gonna have to pay them, right? You want the president to speak at your at your company function, you're gonna pay them, right? You're not there yet. But as a founder, as someone who's doing startup, you have to realize what you can charge and what you cannot charge. Now you don't undervalue yourself, right? You're not gonna go in there and offer, 50 hours of free consultation for them. And at the end of the day, when yeah, ask them to, well, maybe you guys could pay me if you want. No, you have to understand your value proposition. And one of the key things that you said, if I have an hour talking to somebody, you said, a lot of people do spend time talking about themselves and their credentials. If I don't walk out of there with them doing all the talking and me just drilling down, and after 1 hour, I can't present a presentation specifically tailored to them. And what I'll do is I'll ask them, listen, can we record this session? And they'll say yes or no. Okay. I love it when they say yes because it makes my note taking a lot easier because I use AI for that. Right. AI will help me take my notes and I'll take notes and my other team member, my other team people will take notes. We'll start taking notes. And at the end of the day, we don't tell them we got a solution for you. We never say that. If anywhere during that conversation you say I have something that you may want to take a look at. You may lose them, right?
Hmm.
You may lose them. You want them to come at the end of the meeting for them to say, so what's the next steps? What are the next steps? The second they say that, you've piqued their interest and you've got them. You got their interest. It doesn't mean they're going to sign on the dotted line. No way. But it means that they were engaged and you were engaged and you actually explained what they needed to understand. Now, what you do is you do follow up professionally. And this is where people fail. Every meeting, by the end of that meeting, that day, you need to send that person a thank you meeting. A thank you for the time, for meeting with us. We're going to take some notes. We're going to get back to you what we discussed. We're going to meet. We're going to huddle up, and we're going to send you another email. It'll be tomorrow or the day after, but before the end of the week, you shall have a summation for us to discuss. What does that show? One, basic, simple respect. Do you know how many times I meet with people and they don't even send me an email for a week or call me back? They don't. It's common courtesy. Now, it lets that person know that you're respecting them, right? But it also lets them know that you've heard them. But before you're just going to blurt out a solution, you're going to get back to your team to make sure everybody was hearing the same thing. Then you present them with an email with, hey, look, I want to make sure that these are all the things that we discussed. And did we miss anything?
Right.
Okay. You send that to them. Let them get back to, yes, this is exactly what we discussed. Okay. Now we're going to build a presentation for you based on a roadmap of how to get and how to get from point A to point Z with all the different iterations in there. Okay. And how it could be a phased approach if you want a phased approach, right? Because they try to go in there and they try to sell everything in one big gulp. They want them to eat the elephant in one shot. That's not how people operate. You have to prove your value and you got to prove that you can keep your word. Right. I never, even in any company that I work with, I never signed on with a company right away. I
Mm.
said, you got to prove to me that if I'm going to sign a 1 year or 2 year deal with you, you
Yeah.
got to prove to me that you're worth signing. I'm not going to sign a
I
3 year.
wouldn't sign I wouldn't sign anything other than a month-to-month deal with any company ever.
Right. Right. But
ever. Like,
uh,
I don't care how good and you proved it to me. Like,
the-
you need to prove it to me every single month.
right.
Yeah. I mean,
Yeah.
there's no like outside of my wife and my kids, there's no lifelong agreement. You
No
gotta
commitment. That's
treat
right.
me right every single month or I could abort.
Right. And this is where you put the get out of jail card in your policies, in all your contracts. You've got to put a get out of jail card, right? The only companies that I'll say one of the companies that I signed a multi-year agreement was with Microsoft. The deal that we had worked out with them was so phenomenal, was unbelievable because it was like they were giving away in the kitchen sink. We signed it. It was a no
Yeah, I
brainer
mean,
for us.
there's examples where if there's a financial incentive to sign a longer term deal and it
Right.
makes sense. I mean, yeah, there's
Yeah.
some things that you know that are undeniable, you'll do it. Like, like at where I'm at with certain services, I've used them for so long. Like I've used T-Mobile for 3 years. They're really good. Like serve all of my needs. If I
Yes, Switchy.
could get
Right.
a half off on a cell
Yeah.
phone or free cell phone, I sign a 1 year agreement. All good. Who cares?
Yeah. Right.
But yeah, like from an upfront process, no, I like you got to prove to me you're worth that. And look, as an entrepreneur, as a business owner, and as a provider of service and offerings,
Bingo.
I also don't want to sell you a 1 year deal because the last thing I want to do is lock you into an agreement that you don't want to be in.
Right.
And I've also learned that I would tell you over the past year, and Edward, I like this. I've fired more clients that have fired me. I like to get rid like, bro, I don't want to you are not worth me spending my time with even though you're paying me. Like and so I don't want to be in a because an agreement is not just I'll provide service for a year, it's that I will work with you for a year and I don't want to be held into that because you might not be the client I want to serve as well.
They,
So that's I don't know.
yeah. They may want to change the contract or be annoying. This phrase, "the client is always right." It's not true. The client can be
It is when
wrong.
you're desperate. It is when you're
Yeah.
desperate. But I mean, I think that's the key to business is not being desperate. And when you have the ability to, and like I said, I love this part about my last year is I was able to fire 3 clients who paid me a lot of money, more money than I made in my corporate career in a year. These clients paid me, and I was able to fire them and say, I don't want your money because I knew ultimately I could replace that time with a client who was a better fit, who I could help more, and who could pay me more. But it's not just about money.
Right. Right. Listen. It's about quality of life, right? When you're young and you're getting started, you chase money, right?
Sure.
As you get
Yeah.
older, you get wise. Like these gray hairs, I earned every single one of them. I earned them. Trust me when I tell you. Um,
Yeah,
then it becomes about quality of life, and
for sure.
it's more about that relationship and that rapport that you build with the customer. Okay, I have cared more about customers than they have cared about me. And I mean, like personally, I made sure, hey, are you okay? Is your family okay? Is everything going on? I heard there were layoffs. Are you guys all right there? Are you fine? What can I do to help? Right? You tell me how many of customers would do that. How many vendors would do that for you? Right? I can count on one hand with fingers left over how many people have gone above and beyond the sale to talk to me, right? Um, and those are the people that have proved their trust, right? Because look, I'm old school, right? But I do know in business, you shake the hand, right? But I do know in business, you got to put everything on paper. And I tell people, if you're not willing to put things on paper, you're not willing to do it. I tell people, put it down on paper, get it signed, get it documented, make sure that everybody, is happy and unhappy at the same time on these contracts. Um, but you gotta be able to walk away from the client, from these clients. You can't be chained to them if they're sucking up 90% of your time and only 5% of your revenue, okay? That's not a customer. That's a leech, okay? It's a parasite. You gotta get rid of that parasite. Let them be somebody else's headache. Okay. Remember I told you when we talked about, I said everybody should just try to sell houses at one point because in the value of their time, right?
Correct.
Because when you have a customer that wants to buy a house, but that's looking is wasting your time at $500,000 houses, and they can only afford to buy $100,000 house, they're being a leech. And you got to learn to cut that tie. It's
Well,
not
what
worth
you'll also learn in business, in Edward, I'm sure you figured this part out here as we wrap it up, which is
it.
the clients who pay you the most are the ones that are typically the least headache. And the ones who pay you the least are the ones that will fight you for every dollar, and then they will cost the most headache as well. So you learn that over time. You learn the customers who will be able to be easy to work with and who want to work, and then who want to work you. And once again, I know that not every person who operates their business has the flexibility to walk away from customers and to walk away from income. But obviously, that's the goal of anybody. So, Edward, look, we're running late on time. We've had this conversation. We could probably talk for hours, brother.
Yeah.
But let me ask you this. So, obviously, I'm going to put all of your contact information, how to get in touch with you, in the bio of the channel. Um, as our audience is a bunch of entrepreneurs, founders, people who have done sales or want to be better at sales, what are your final words for those people in the audience?
I know people have said this before. Um, every successful entrepreneur, I think the average is 15 times they tried start their own company before they had that successful company. If you feel that your product is good and you feel that you have faith in it, don't stop. Don't listen to the naysayers. Don't listen to the people. Everybody who's on the outside that hasn't started their own company they're, Monday night quarterbacks, right? Monday night quarterbacks. Don't
Sure.
listen to them. You started your own company. You're ahead of them. You're ahead of 99.99% of the people that didn't start their own company, but always trying to tell you, how you could do it better. They don't know how to do it better because they would be doing it themselves. Surround yourself with successful business owners, people that have the same drive and motivation as you, and that's how you're going to go forward. Start, pay it forward with people. It takes time, and eventually that bubble will pop, and you will be successful. Patience, just got to be patient, and you can't stop.
That's it. Don't stop. And it's not perfect the first time. And I always say this. I've run into so many entrepreneurs who never got off the ground because they spent so much time trying to perfect their plan. And almost the biggest issue with a perfect plan is when you spend so much time building a perfect plan, you're so married to the execution of that perfect plan, you're unwilling to move off of that perfect plan. I think the most important thing for an entrepreneur early in the business is move your feet, go into any direction, and be willing to pivot and adjust where you need. Edward, I appreciate you jumping on with us today.
Matt,
I've
it was
learned
great.
a lot. I assume the audience has learned a lot too. For any of you guys that are watching, obviously like, share, comment, engage. The more people we can get this in front of, the more people we can help. Edward, once again, thank you for your time today.
Thanks, Matt. Thanks for having me.
Have a good day, guys.
You too.